Hello gamers! On the left side, you can see Ghost of Tsushima on 1080p with DLLA and very high preset. And on the right side, our optimized settings with the same resolution and anti-aliasing. As you can observe, despite higher field of view, we still achieve almost 10% higher performance. But as always in our guides, our main goal is to preserve best possible visuals and that with minimum 60 frames per second. And for that we are going to use NVIDIA DLDSR feature. If you don't know how to enable DLDSR, you can learn it from our very short collective guide, link in the description. If you don't have RTX card, you can use DSR or AMD equivalent VSR. DLDSR in short is allowing you to render game with higher resolution than your monitor, which later is downscaled to fit your screen. But the best thing about it is that you can combine it with upscaling. In this case, DLSS. You are looking at 1620p, which is 2.25 DLDSR multiplier for 1080p monitors and with optimized settings. Let's compare it to the 1080p DLLA. It's looking very good, even despite the fact that internal resolution on DLDSR with DLSS balance is lower than 1080p. Immotion situation stays the same. Nix has also released Tsushima with already newest DLSS version, 3.7, so this is minus one thing that we have to do ourselves. Before going further, please consider subscribing our channel. You can find here our graphical optimization guides, upscaling and gaming comparisons, and more. If you want to watch already settings comparison, skip time to 2 minutes 53 seconds. If you want to see all optimized settings right away, skip it to the 8:14.
For the texture quality, in principle there are only two distinguishable settings, ultra and low. Everything in between indicates just differences in VRAM. This is very likely caused by a different draw distance for full resolution textures. As the differences in performance are very minor and there is no risk of exceeding 8 GB of VRAM, we recommend ultra.
Shadow quality is a bit controversial setting for me. I would love to be able to lower resolution of the shadows, but leave the draw distance of the ultra. Sadly, every lower option have worse draw distance, so as our recommendation is very high, which have decent draw distance and quality, if you have better GPU than 3060, this is really only option worth going higher than the recommendation.
Level of detail not only affects the render distance of foliage, but also some volumetric effects. As you can see here, we recommend high because it has actually an impressive draw distance for a hefty 19% performance boost in comparison to very high.
Terrain detail influences pretty much only tessellation level of the ground. It does not affect the ground textures. Our recommendation is high because 6% performance from low is not worth it.
Volumetric fog, despite its name, is applying to the majority of volumetric effects in the game, including volumetric lighting. Our recommendation is high, because the definition of volumetric effects at this level is very similar to Ultra, with decent 12% performance uplift. Interestingly, it does not affect cloud quality at all.
Screen space reflections, despite commonly and competently used cube maps, are really worth to keep it on very high. Ghost of Tsushima is a magical creation in terms of atmosphere, and in certain scenes proper reflections can really enrich reception of the game. 5 or 8% of performance is simply worth it.
For screen space shadows, our recommendation is very high. There is no significant performance differences between the settings. Additionally, this effect synergizes well with ambient occlusion.
For ambient occlusion, we recommend HBAO as it feels the most complex. Ambient occlusion looks actually very similar to SSAO, and visually don't justify performance cost in comparison. If you will use DLDSR but you don't have DLDSR resolution on your desktop, make sure your game is on exclusive full screen, otherwise it won't work. For our resolution, we use 2.25 multiplier of DLDSR, which on 1080p displays is 1620p. I'm recommending to enable VSync unless you use some vertical synchronization solution in your NVIDIA panel, G-Sync or VSync. Dramatic contrast makes colors more vibrant and vivid. I recommend to use it, it has no performance cost. We are going to use DLSS on balanced. If you have more powerful GPU than 3060, consider quality, but I would say it's better to use additional processing power on ultra shadows than higher DLSS. On Horizon Forbidden West on release, NVIDIA Reflex was bugged and was causing stuttering. But here I must say that it really lowers the input lag, especially while using VSync on 60Hz monitors. Feels more smooth. For a frame generation, at least from AMD, because that's the only one we could test on 3060, we don't recommend using it. It's great that finally somebody allows us to use competition frame generation with DLSS in the same time without mods, but I've noticed a lot of artifacts on our character-wise spinning camera or weird shimmering on the edges of the building groups, etc. If you decide to use it anyway and you have 60Hz monitor, remember to disable VSync, because input lag will kill you. For our detail settings, I couldn't find any performance and visual difference for water caustic, so I left it on, as always in our guides. As I personally don't like depth of field and motion blur, I'm always disabling it. Ghost of Tsushima is a quite cinematic and poetic game, so depth of field can be a decent option, but it's personal preference and I don't recommend using it. If you like our work, please consider subscribing us. We release regularly content with setting optimization guides, upscaling and games comparisons. And there will be more. So, see you soon!